1, 2, 3, classic. Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Kieran aka Mr. Classic. I'm here with Uhyoung today and we're just going to go through, give you a few tips and tricks, try and set you up for what you need to dominate your local pre-release.
Yeah, sounds great. And I've never actually drafted part of the Mistveil myself because I'm actually a new dev. So I wasn't part of the development process for this set. So I'm actually excited to try out my first sealed.
So part of the Mistveil is a little bit different than your normal sealed experience and you get to actually open, count them, 8
packs.
Pretty sweet, 2 more packs than usual,
Yeah.
so that's pretty cool. Should we just jump right into it and start cracking some packs and see what we get?
Sounds good. I can't wait to open these up.
Shotgun first, so...
All right, let's do it. I will wait patiently while you do.
Oh,
Token.
strike. Beckoning Mistblade. Okay, so we have a Vengeful Apparition. First Tenant of Chi Moon, pretty nice for turning on Transcend. Untamed.
Ooh,
A venomous red venomous bite. Sigil of Solitude. Harmony of the Hunt. Mind's Desire. Water the Seeds, surprisingly a good card. Passover, very nice for new, being able to banish cards.
Yeah, first little Transcend card.
Evasive Leap, so always nice to have some defense reactions in there. Then Aqualapse, Key Unleashed, Ardent Desire Body,
Ooh.
and a foil, Single-Minded Determination.
Oh my god, that looks amazing. That is sick art. Okay. All right, my pack time.
Right, back to work.
Okay, so I've got a Beckoning Mistblade and a Slither as my tokens. And then let's have a look here. Got a Waning Vengeance yellow, Intimate Inducement, red Solitary Companion, blue Biting Breeze, yellow Desires of Flesh, blue Sigil of Solitude, red Harmony of the Hunt,
Nice.
yellow Battlefield Bastion, which is pretty good. Another Transcend card. Nimblism, that's a callback. Uphold Tradition. Ooh, red Double Trouble, that's pretty good. Astral Etchings, and our foil is an Evasive Leap.
Some pretty good cards for multiple heroes in that pack. I feel.
Yeah.
涙の色はエメラルドブルー宝石みたいに光ってる流れ星を見上げていたあの夜も
Fact Finding Mission. This is my first time seeing this card. What is this? When this hits a hero, you may look at a face-down card in their arsenal or equipment zone.
So cool thing about this is equipment zone where we have cloaked equipment. There's a lot of relevant ones. It's pretty nice just to actually get a little bit of information sometimes. when you're playing around.
Cool.
And a good old-fashioned 2/6. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a good old 2/6. Ooh, a little story slot for us. Supercell in Majestic foil.
So this one I believed was spoiled by Carol at the Calling War store. So pretty cool that we get it up. So shout out to all our Max fans out there.
Yeah, and a little Crouching Tiger.
涙の色はエメラルドブルー宝石みたいに光ってる何もかもを捨てたかった憂鬱なあの日々も騒ぎ始めた胸の中の答えを探す旅に出よう流れ星を追い越してくスピードで
All right, well, now that we've cracked all the packs, should we just start getting them sorted out?
Yeah, sounds good.
One thing I like to do is just split them up into piles. So I'll go a pile of our Transcend cards, then put the Mystic and Generic cards together as they can be played in all 3 classes, then our Equips, and then just split them into the classes.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, see if I've still got it. Alright, now that we have all our cards nicely laid out into piles, I just guess one quick note, the Supercell card that you opened in the expansion slot.
Yes.
So just a reminder to everyone that any cards you open in the last 2 slots, which are usually the token slot here, you cannot actually play in your sealed deck. So for example, if you crack that nice cold foil or other legendary, not for sealed, save it, put it away, start building that CC deck or whatever your format is.
But I really wanted to play a Mystic Mechanologist.
I know, next time.
Next time. All right, put it aside.
So one quick check that Carol always likes to do, which I always think is a good one towards which class we want to play, is look which one you have the most class cards in, as a rule of thumb. Now, I think unfortunately for us,
this actually looks
they're all
so similar.
They're all pretty much the same, so
Wow.
we're going to have to go into level 2.
Yeah. We're going to have to use our brains.
So if we start with the Illusionist, we have Truth Retold and Uphold Tradition. For New, we have Heirloom of Snakehide, Undertow Stilettos, and then for Zen, we have the Mask of Wise and Whiskers. Now, in terms of our equips that can be played across all 3, we have our Aqualapse down here. We have the Skybound Kikoi, so that's actually nice. We have a full 4 equips lining up over here. We have a second Aqualapse, so I mean that is what it is. And then we have the Waves of Aquamarine. So our equips have actually lined up really nice. So whichever hero we want to play, we can play up to 3 equipments.
Yeah.
Or if we're playing Illusionist, we can play all 4. I think basically this doesn't shut anything off.
Yeah.
If we really want 4 equips, we can go this. We do have this Heirloom of Snakehide, which is very nice in here.
Yeah.
I think potentially just off this, I'd be maybe looking a little bit more towards Illusionist, just because it's really nice having the full 4 equips.
Yeah.
So perhaps we'll just start by having a look through our Illusionist cards and seeing what works.
All right, sounds good. Let's do it. All right, Kieran, so we've just laid out all the cards for Illusionist. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a good amount of reds, yellows, and blues, but I have no idea if this is a good pool. Help me out.
So I think some cards that we immediately want to look at are things like your Instant Speed Auras, your Waning Vengeance, your Waxing Spectre, those kind of things.
Yeah.
These are cards that allow you to potentially develop multiple auras on your turn, start building up a board, start building up that ward so you're able to go on turn offense and defense and kind of vice versa.
Gotcha. Because they're instants, you can play multiples in the same turn, which is what makes them good.
Absolutely, and you can have you can play out multiple cards. So cards like Waning Vengeance have, when this leaves the arena, if you've pitched a blue card this turn, create a Spectral Shield.
Yeah.
So you can either play them out on your turn proactively, or defensively you might want to pitch a blue and start playing multiple ones of these auras.
Cool.
You'll see that similar for cards like Waxing Spectre as well. If you've pitched a blue card this turn, enters with a +1 counter. And we'll also see it on cards like Haze Shelter, where has Ward X, where X is 3 if you pitched a blue card this turn.
Cool.
So looking through some of our cards here, immediately I'm pretty happy to see we have multiple red Instant Speed Auras, 2 Waning Vengeance, Waxing Spectre. We also have cards, so some of your non-Instant Speed Auras, they still can be quite good. So we have cards like Solitary Companion here. When this enters, if you control no other Illusionist Auras, create a Spectral Shield token. One thing you want to avoid is overloading your deck with Solitary Matters Auras.
Gotcha.
Because if you have a whole lot of them, obviously there's going to be times where you have multiple auras in play and you don't get the secondary effect.
Gotcha.
In that case, they're not that strong.
Yeah.
Cards like Single-Minded Determination, for example, really nice. Just playing that on turn 1, just get down a Ward 2 card with 3+1/+1 counters. It's starting to swing for 5 with Go Again as well because of your weapon.
Oh, yep.
So having auras with +1 counters on them because of your Cosmo Ledger of Ancestry, really nice to have as well. So I'm seeing a nice mix of these cards here. For example, all the Instant Speed Auras. We even have some of these in blue, which we might consider playing.
Yeah.
We also have some really nice cards such as Moon Chakra. So the next time you be dealt damage, prevent 3 of that. If you transcend this turn, instead prevent 5. Sets up some really nice plays. We might play 2 Transcend cards. Transcend, play this, prevent 5 damage.
Cool.
Cards like Spectral Manifestations is really nice, particularly in red. I like to have, definitely at least 1, sometimes multiple of these in my deck.
Yeah.
What this is really good for as well is if your opponent managed to push through, blow up your entire board, you can set this up in Arsenal and go pitch a blue, play Spectral Manifestations, or even a yellow if you need to, and then you get a Spectral Shield, 3+1/+1 counters, and it's attacking for free with Go Again.
Gotcha.
So really nice just way to either turbocharge your early game or recover from a board that's been blown up, which you may decide, I'll let you blow up my board and then I'll keep going. Astral Etchings as well is a really nice sort of trick. So it's one of these things, if you see it's Illusionist action without Go Again. So put 3+1/+1 counters in target aura with ward you control. So you are just able to do this to, say, front load something, or for example, if you strip most of your opponent's hand, end by putting this on one of your Spectral Shields or another aura, really pump it up. But it's at its best when you control a Spectral Shield, because then it becomes a 1-cost sort of combat trick. Give something +3 at instant speed.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah.
Now, Enigma doesn't have a ton of these available, so something like that can really catch your opponent off guard, particularly in the end game when they're down to sort of, they're 3-4 life.
I experienced that with the Blitz decks.
Yep, I'm just attacking with my shield for 1. Oh, wait, no, it's 4. Game over. Some of these other cards, like a number of the yellows, we generally don't want to play a whole lot of these.
Okay.
I think there are some exceptions for things like Waning Vengeance, because it's an instant speed aura, and even Waxing Spectre and Hayshell to a certain extent.
What I'm getting is we want a bunch of instant speed auras.
Yep.
Because they don't cost an action point, and you can chuck a bunch of them out in one turn, so that's really good. We want some things like Spectral Manifestations to put counters on your Spectral Shields and Wards so that they can like swing and get go again because of the weapon. And then we want a few of these defensive ones as well they can really get you tempo and help you survive.
Yep.
Is that?
I think that's right. The defensive aspect is really important in Enigma as well.
Yeah.
So that's where you might lean on our equipments a little bit.
Cool.
But also you don't want to fall into the trap of saying, oh, look, I've got all these amazing instant auras.
Yeah.
The thing about instances, they don't defend.
Yeah.
Generally, Moonchakra kind of defends.
Yeah.
But a lot of these cards, if we're looking down here, like your blue Haze Shelter, your blue Waxing Spectre, they don't defend. So you really need to make sure you keep that balance in mind.
Gotcha.
I think it's good to look at cards like the Vengeful Apparition, blue 3D cards. You might find these in your Mystic map as well, or in your generics, which is really cool. One final thing I just want to spotlight quickly is Uphold Tradition. So we mentioned this earlier. It's really cool because this also acts as a little combat trick.
Yeah.
It's cloaked as well. Your opponent doesn't know you have it until it's revealed. This serves 2 purposes. One, it can just give +1, go over lethal.
Yeah.
The secondary part of this, though, is for something like Waning Vengeance, doesn't have a +1/+1 counter. You're able to pay 1 to flip this up.
Gotcha.
And give this a +1/+1 counter.
Yeah.
It then has go again and extends your turn.
Yeah.
Also,
So that would swing for 4, go again.
absolutely.
Wow.
And also a nice little trick sometimes if you have a bunch of these in play, things that matter if you have a card in your blue pitch or a blue pitch card in your pitch lane or not, you can sort of pitch a blue in a pinch to flip this up and then turn on all your, if I pitched a blue card this turn, to get your extra shields and that sort of thing.
Cool. So looking at this pool, are you leaning towards Enigma or no? Should we have a look at the other pools?
I think we should have a look at the other pools. There are some quite strong Enigma cards here, but I think it's not strong to the point where I'm absolutely just slamming this and playing nothing else. I think it's worth us just checking out what else we have.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. So Kieran, we've now laid out the ninja cards. Tell me what we're looking at.
So one of the core things we're looking for is a sort of critical mass of combo cards, so we're able to utilize Zen's hero ability, and then we also need to have enough crouching target generators in order to enable Zen's weapon, which gives next Tiger +1 and enable some of these combo cards without having to fully rely on the hero ability at all times. So if we have a look here, we have 2 conditional generators over here, so these are on hit. So we have Biting Breeze and Flex Claws. Flex Claws is probably the better out of these 2, as it presents a breakpoint, which is always nice, eating up another equip. In terms of our unconditional generators, well, not truly unconditional, but this is again a blue matters thing. So if you've pitched a blue card, Tiger Form, Incantation, and Harmony at the Hunt both create a Crouching Tiger in your hand. Another thing to just keep in mind is that the Mystic Ninja cards that create Crouching Tigers, they create Tigers in your hand. The Ninja only cards create Tigers in the Banish Zone. So that can be very relevant because if you get a Tiger off these, you need to use it that turn or lose it. Whereas these you can actually keep in an arsenal for a future turn.
Cool.
If that lines up better.
Yeah.
Looking okay across here.
Yeah.
Then we have some of our cards like Untamed, which just buff your Crouching Tigers. So just kind of nice to, it's a 1/4, can represent sort of 1/5 in terms of value. And then we want to look at our combo cards. So we have Breed Anger, so that if a Crouching Tiger was the last card played, it creates another Crouching Tiger. It can be a little hard to utilize the additional Tiger at times, honestly, for this. And Key Unleashed is one of our premium big combo cards. So baseline 2/3, but gets +4 if a Crouching Tiger was the last attack.
Pretty strong.
So going up to a 2/7 is pretty damn nice. Now, in terms of our blues, I mean, the yellows, again, some of these cards like Companion of the Claw, you may play that if you really need Tiger generators. So this is similar wording to Harmony at the Hunt, but just 2 costs rather than 1 cost. Yellow Flex Claws is pretty average, just comes in for 3, not a breakpoint. Breed Anger Yellow, a little bit tricky to use. Key Unleashed Yellow, I think I'd still play that just because of the raw power.
Yeah, but I guess because this is still a ninja aggro deck, you want to look for as many reds as possible. And just having a look at this, it feels like we have a bit too many blues and not enough red. Is that a correct assessment?
I tend to agree with you. Our reds are a little bit limited here.
Yeah.
And while we do have some very powerful ones in the forms of Flex Claws, Tiger Form Incantation, Harmony That Hunts, and Key Unleashed,
Yeah.
even Untamed to a certain extent, there's probably just not quite enough reds to push me off something like Enigma that we just saw.
Yeah.
It's a nice pull, but I feel we could do better.
Yeah.
I feel we might just need a few more power cards to really say, we're definitely playing Zen in this one.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. So then shall we check out new, see how that looks?
Yeah, I think we pack this up and we have a look at it on new cards.
Cool. All right, so we've laid out all the new cards, which is my favorite hero in the set. How are we looking?
Okay, so we want to look at things like I think attack reactions is always a big one for new. Being able to sidestep, being able to push over a little bit of damage. So we do have the 1 red Venomous Bite, which is amazing, very premium. After that, it starts to fall off quite quickly. So we have the Intimate Inducement, red and yellow. These are okay.
Yeah.
I think the blue is probably the best version of this. It blocks for 3, still gives the +1.
Oh, good thing we have the red and the yellows.
Yeah. So you can play these in a pinch, but they're not incredible. Tide Chakra is still pretty nice, being able to go up to +4 if you transcended. And blue Hiss, blue Venomous Bite. Honestly, having these in blue is very nice because they block for 3 and they can also get your Transcend online, which is very good to have. So our reactions are not looking amazing, to put it frankly. But if we start to look at some of our stealth cards, one thing to note about these is a number of these cards have the text, whenever this banishes a something card, do something. So for example, Art of Desire Body, whenever this banishes a red card, draw a card and gain 1 life. Important to note that in conjunction with Nu's hero ability, if your opponent defends this with a red action card, it will get banished and you will gain a life and draw 1 card. So that's always something to keep in mind whether you're playing on or against Nu. Cards that one of the superstars I feel in Nu is Desires of Flesh down here. Desires of Flesh is just really, really good into Zen and against Nu in the mirror. Somewhat weak against Enigma, but still can be okay. The big part of this card is when it hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck. Whenever this banishes an attack action card, gain 1 life. Can put people in a down if they do, down if they don't situation, particularly against Zen. I attack with this. If you defend with an action card, then I'm going to banish that and gain a life. If you don't defend, well, maybe I banish an attack action off the top. Can also get blocked. They defend with an attack action card. You react, also hits, banish the top card of their deck plus the defending card. So these are really, really good to look for. Unfortunately, we don't have any reds here, but we do have a blue and 2 yellows, which is quite nice. Double Trouble, very good. It's just a 0/3. It's one of those cards we talked about earlier that cares about playing 2 attack reactions.
So one thing's like Venomous Bite, which gives you 2 reactions in itself.
Absolutely, and Hiss and down here as well. We also have the Undertow Stilettos that we mentioned earlier, which can satisfy that condition all by itself. Some of the other cards to look for are things like Pick the Pieces, really important to have against Enigma in order to try break through their just wall of ward. Can be very difficult if you're just trying to dagger over and over again to get through it. Can be pretty tricky.
But if you Pick the Pieces and then Venomous Bite red over the top, you might be having a real good time.
You could be looking pretty good. I'd say some of these other cards like Mind's Desire is it's okay. It's kind of the flip side of Desires of Flesh. Probably not as impactful as Desires of Flesh. Impulsive Desire, kind of similar. It's a little bit more narrow, only banishing reactions or instant cards. Now, Art of Desire Soul. I mean, the problem is it's when it banishes a yellow card, so it's just not quite. That's generally not the card you're looking for.
We want to be banishing the blue so that we can play it later as Nu, or we want to be banishing the reds because those are the powerful cards in your opponent's decks.
Absolutely correct. So this is probably not ideal. I would kind of prefer one of the other ones here. So the downside is that a number of our banished cards are things like Impulsive Desire and this, which aren't amazing. But in saying that, I feel we actually have a reasonably decent base in terms of these. The biggest weakness is the lack of attack reactions. But one thing I will say is we're probably going to need to move on and have a look at some of the generic and mystic cards. And Nu is one of the heroes that can benefit a lot from those. Sometimes even more so than the other classes, depending on what you have. But I believe looking through our pool earlier, we have a lot of these cards that care if you've played a blue card or not this turn. But also in terms of our Transcend cards, we do have a number of things like Path Well Traveled, which is really, really good in Nu.
That's the one that gives Go Again.
Yes. And I believe we also opened a Passover, which is really nice for banishing their best blue card. I believe after looking at all of these, sort of going to narrow it down to Nu and Enigma, to what we build today. And it'll probably come down to what cards support those best in the generic and mystic map.
All right, sounds good. I'm rooting for Nu, but
well, we'll see.
Okay, so we've got all the generic and mystic cards laid out in front of us. I'm looking at them. What are you thinking?
Well, one of the first things I want to focus on is some of these blue matters cards down here in the mystic map. So there's a cycle going from 0 to 3 costs. We have Droplet, Rising Tide, Spillover, and Tidal Surge. So 0, 1, 2, and 3 cost. These all share the text that if you've played another blue card this turn, this gets +2.
Yeah.
So these are just great cards to help fill out your deck. They're actually very powerful as well a lot of the time. I feel sometimes they can be a little bit more sort of powerful in New and Enigma.
Gotcha.
At times. So seeing the number of these here, particularly with things like in New, you're beckoning Mistblades, of course, to be able to give your blue attacks go again. Also in Enigma, because you might play sort of a few more blues than Transcend cards because of all your blue matters things.
Yeah.
I would say they're bad in Zen, but it kind of points me a little bit more in those directions.
Yeah, because Zen wants to be throwing out red attacks.
A lot of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
So you still want your Transcend for your hero ability, but Zen tends to have like lots of go wide little attacks and things like that, whereas New and Enigma kind of don't mind throwing out one big attack.
Cool.
Now, the cards that pair quite nicely with these as well, these first tenants of Chi, so Wind, Moon, and Tide. So they're all 0 cost blue cards with 3 defense. Always a nice place to start for your deck foundation. So they give an order. Wind gives Go Again, which is fantastic. You know, you can play this out, pitch a blue, play any one of these, gets the bonus and the +2.
Yeah.
The Moon one draws a card, so it can get you that Arsenal card you need for the turn.
Cool.
And Tide is just that raw damage. So first tenant of Chi Tide into a Tidal Surge, you're coming in for 9 off blue, which is
That's pretty sweet.
it's pretty damn nice.
And a combo that I'm sort of noticing is sort of these blue non-attack cards. You can play them, and then you can play your Transcend card. Because they
Absolutely.
would count as your other blue. Cool.
Yep, absolutely. And the same thing with these cards here. So when we have a look at our Transcend cards shortly, things like Path Well Traveled, for example, are fantastic on these. So you can pitch a blue, play any, or maybe not even pitch, but basically play out one of these cards, be threatening additional damage, and potentially give it Go Again.
Yeah.
Get your Transcend, get your hero power going.
That's a big wombo.
So it's all really nice. So these are great cards, I feel, across all 3 classes, but at times a little tougher for Zen to use than the other 2.
Gotcha.
In terms of specific cards that might point us in one direction, I think Gravekeeping in particular, very good
Great
in New.
new card. Yep.
Right? It's also very nice to have in blue, even though it's a blue, it can help turn on your Transcend cards, like you mentioned earlier. Getting to banish a card from their graveyard, you can banish their best blue attack, which is awesome. Little side note, if you're playing against New and you can, sometimes a good idea to take these out of your Seal deck.
No. Keep them in. So juicy.
It's up to you. But if you can, sometimes that can be the game breaker. They banish one of your power cards, and they're off to the races. And so this is a great card for New. Battlefront Bastion is a card that, particularly if you're playing Enigma, it's really good to bring in against New and Zen. One Battlefront Bastion, if you block New's dagger, carries over a prevention.
Yeah.
And then it can block against the
Block 2 daggers with one card.
Yep, and against Zen as well, it can help sort of shut off that pesky tiger for 1 coming in.
Yeah.
The other cards that I want to look at here are cards like Emissary of Wind, which is a rare. So this is 0/4 with 2 defense. When it attacks, you can put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. If you do, this gets Go Again.
Oh, it's like a poor man's E-Strike.
Yeah, so there's actually a cycle in this set that you can make your own E-Strike in a way. All 3 of them have the classic Enlightened Strike abilities, so +2 Go Again and draw a card, which is great. Now this card, I believe it's great. You can play it in all 3 heroes. Having a 0/4 is just generally pretty good. Always nice to have those breakpoints. I do actually quite like having this available at times in New and Enigma. Classes that can occasionally struggle to go wide, get multiple action points. So this can be a nice card to even bring it out of the side or play main.
Cool.
Water the Seeds tends to be, I'd say, more of a Zen or New card. It's really nice to be able to buff up your daggers or tigers. Although a fun little trick you can do, if you're playing Enigma and you're playing something like a mirror, having these Water the Seeds in is actually quite nice. Because it just gives you a little bit of go wide, gives you a little bit of ways to threaten their ward.
Gotcha.
Even the blue is quite nice. It turns on Transcend, comes in for 1, will buff up your weapon attacks, it's like your Spectral Shields, for example.
Yeah.
And finally, we have a look at cards like the Nimble Strikes. Again, that's probably, you can play it in New as well. Probably a little bit more of a Zen thing. I mean, obviously you can play it in both. The Nimbleisms being blue, it's fine. Blues are all good.
Yeah. It's just a solid base if you need it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, reds are kind of nice to have, but it is what it is. Fact-finding mission, it's got a great stat line. 2/6 is actually pretty good, even though it's 2D. Sometimes you just want to have these big attacks to red and push some damage. And the on-hit effect is really nice for obviously getting some information from Arsenal, but also in this set because of the cloaked equipment, which it can also look at.
Yeah.
As they start face down, there's a lot of cloaked equipment with these tricky effects, things like Go Again or +1 power.
Yeah. And those equipment that if you put your opponent to 1 life, they get to flip it up for like a huge effect.
Absolutely.
So it's good to know whether they have that before you try to put them to 1 life.
Yeah, it's really good because sometimes you can actually leave your opponent on 2 and be like, you're not flipping. I know it's there. I know it's there.
Yeah.
So this one, I feel you can actually play across all 3, but again, probably slightly more towards Nu or Enigma.
Gotcha.
Finally, we have the Evasive Leap, just your kind of stock standard defense reaction. Again, doesn't necessarily point us in one direction or the other.
Yeah.
I do quite like having access to some number of these in Enigma.
Yeah.
Just to, once you set up your board, if you have this in Arsenal, it just gives you another card to be able to try and protect some or all of your board.
Yeah.
And then just start swinging in with them and let your board die reset if you need to.
Especially when Nu's playing a lot of attack reactions, so you really need to see what they're doing before you block them.
Absolutely, and so the Evasive Leap, again, if you're playing against Nu, no matter what hero you're playing, they can be nice to bring in, have a few little tricks up your sleeve. Sometimes I like to just double down on the defense in Enigma as well, really protect. So I think in terms of the generics and mystics, I don't think there's massive standouts really saying you have to play this hero or another, but I think because of all these really powerful blue attacks we have along with these, I think like we thought previously, it's definitely pushing us towards Nu or Enigma. I think a really cool feature of the sealed format is because with the 8 packs and because of the Mystic and generic crossover, you're really able to just play your preference. I think, it might point you in one direction, but I think we have a very playable Nu and Enigma deck here. We could even reach and play Zen if we need to.
Yeah, because I'm definitely looking at this and I'm like, I want to force Nu.
Yeah, I know you're a new man. You're a new man at heart. I mean, you look at the Beckoning Mistveil and you look at these cards.
And I'm like, oh, they can all have +1 and go again. I mean, why wouldn't I?
They're looking pretty damn nice. And obviously, shout out to Wounding Blow as well. Just 3 defense, blue, always good to have. Personally, I think I might be leaning just a tiny bit towards Enigma.
Yeah, fair enough.
The reason for that is I think we do have a number of pretty good instant auras. On the Nu side, what's letting us down just a little bit is those attack reactions, I think.
Yeah, so, we only got 1 red attack reaction.
Yeah, only the other 1 red Venomous Spite. We do have some blues in there. The other part for Nu is I feel some of our stealth attacks, we do have a good number of them, but I just wish some of them were a little bit better or shifted over to a different card. So Desires of Flesh, for example, we have 3 of those, 2 yellow and a blue. But I just kind of wish maybe a couple of those were red, for example, or a few more reacts here and there. So that's leaning me towards a little bit more towards Enigma.
How about we look at the Transcend cards and see if that gives us any final deciding factors?
Yeah, that sounds good. Should we pack up the Mystic and Generic, move on to the Transcend? Once we've looked at those, we'll make a final decision and we'll get around to building the Seal deck.
All right, sounds good.
Sweet as, let's do it. So in part the Mistveil, you will get at least 1 Transcend card in every pack, which means that your pre-release, you should be looking at a minimum of 8.
Nice.
Sometimes you can get a special Majestic up that number a little bit, which is quite cool. So the thing about, one important thing to note about Transcend cards is they are legendary, has that keyword, but in sealed deck, you can play multiple copies of these. So for example, we have 2 Passovers here. You definitely can play both of them if you want to.
Okay, sick. Okay, then I have a question for you. I'm seeing 8 great Transcend cards. Am I shoving all 8 in my deck?
Well, you could, but...
I could.
The important thing about Transcend cards to remember is while they're powerful because you need the chi, they do not defend.
Yeah.
So the more Transcend cards you put into your deck, you are going for those powerful payoffs.
Yeah.
But it means towards the end of the game, if you pack your deck full of Transcend cards, it looks a bit like a fromagerie because it's full of cheese.
But if I kill my opponent, I don't need to block, right? So
that's true. But I would say in general, a good rule of thumb is you want to play somewhere between 4 to 6 Transcend cards. This number can go up and down depending on a number of things like the power of your Transcend cards. So for example, something like Pathwell Travel is very powerful. If you have a whole lot of these, you may want to play a little bit more. If all of your Transcend cards are maybe slightly on the weaker end, like Stir the Pot, you may play a little bit less. But I feel 4 to 6 is generally a good number to aim for.
Yeah, sounds good.
So if we have a look at these in the context of the decisions of the heroes we want to play, one of the standouts to me here is Passover. this card is just fantastic and new.
Yeah.
Being able to banish target card from an opposing hero's graveyard, just really good, right? We looked at some of those cards earlier, like the Tidal Surges.
Yeah, you just go, I want that blue attack, banish.
Yep, I want your best blue attack, banish, play Passover, play another blue, banish, transcend. And then a lot of these cards with the text, if you've played a blue card this turn, you've already played a blue here, so their ability's online.
Yeah.
It's just, and you can come in with Beckoning Mistblade first, so
Yeah.
it has Go Again. It's actually fine to play it again in all 3 heroes. There's little niche ways that you can get other heroes, so things like Preserve Tradition and Passover is an interesting interaction. Preserve Tradition is put target action card from your graveyard on the bottom of your deck.
Yeah.
So if they preserve Tradition, you can respond with Passover.
Yeah.
Little fun stuff like that.
But also, it can go the other way. If you try Passover, they can preserve tradition.
They can,
And
yep.
then make you brick your Transcend ability, right?
Yeah, so if you play 2 Transcend cards, so if I played, say, for example, a Stir the Pot and a Passover,
Yeah.
the Passover won't actually resolve because of this, so this won't transcend,
Yeah.
but the Stir the Pot will.
Gotcha. Because it has to banish the card to transcend.
Yes. Okay, now moving on, so we mentioned Stir the Pot briefly. That is, in a way, probably one of your more filler Transcend cards.
Yeah.
The shuffle effect, it can be good at times if you've put a whole lot of no-block cards all together,
Yeah.
or you have all your reds together, you need to shuffle up.
Yeah.
But generally, you're just playing this because of the Transcend text.
Yeah, but there is that cool interaction. So if you transcend, put a chi at the bottom, later on you play Stir the Pot to shuffle your deck to try get that chi closer to the top.
That's absolutely right, and particularly if your deck may be a little bit low on chi, or you're really playing towards one,
Yeah.
that is a very nice use case for that card.
Cool.
Path Well Traveled, one of the powerhouses, I feel. We mentioned earlier being able to play with some of those Blue Matters cards. One thing to note is its target attack gets Go Again, so
Yeah.
you can also use this on weapon attacks. It doesn't have to be an attack action.
Cool.
So for Enigma, for example, if you attack with a big aura and you're just wanting to give it Go Again, it doesn't
Yeah.
have a +1 counter. Really great for
good.
that. Homage to Ancestors, Gain 1 Life. This is just universally a pretty good one.
Yep.
It's kind of like a blue sigil, right? That
Yep,
can
with
transcend.
upside.
With
Yeah.
upside. We've already mentioned Preserve Tradition. Rising Sun, Setting Moon. It's just nice for a little bit of fixing as well. And a cool little trick with this is, you play a Transcend card and the Rising Sun, Setting Moon, and you basically stack them so if you don't want to have 2 chi in your hand,
Yeah.
you put the chi from the first Transcended card on the bottom,
Yeah.
and then get another card instead.
Pretty sweet.
So I'd say in terms of putting us towards a certain hero, and obviously the Passover is at its best in new. Still kind of want to play Enigma though.
Yep. Fair enough.
If this was sort of stacked even more, we had say 3 Passovers, 2 well traveled.
Yeah.
I'd say, okay, now it's really telling us we probably have to play new. But I don't think there's a big enough imbalance that there's really saying we have to play one hero.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to play new, I would absolutely not fault you. I think the new deck could be potentially just as good as the Enigma deck here because of these cards. Personally, I'm fixing to play a little bit of Enigma, so I'm still leaning towards that.
Fair enough. Agree to disagree.
All right, so I guess we've covered the Transcend cards. Should we actually just get through to building the deck now?
Yeah, sounds like a plan. All right, Kieran, so now we've laid out all the cards that we want to play. We've landed on 37 cards plus 4 pieces of equipment. But I understand that we can only play 30 cards this limited format.
You're absolutely correct. No more, no less. Has to be 30. So kind of one of my least favorite parts of making Sealed because you have to cut the cards.
Yeah.
Play all the good stuff. But I know a lot of people can struggle with this at pre-releases, Sealed decks, myself included at times.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to be disciplined, go through and start cutting some cards.
All right, so how do we start cutting 7 cards? What are you looking at?
So the first thing I want to check is our ratio of blues to reds, and of course some number of yellows.
Yeah.
One thing I have noticed after we laid this all out is we have 19 blues, which
Cool.
I think just maybe slightly too many for what we want to be achieving here.
Yeah.
So that's certainly one thing I'll be focusing on. Another thing I'll be looking at is, are there cards that I might want to bring in and out for certain matchups,
Cool.
but aren't necessarily good against everything.
Yeah.
So it may not sort of necessarily be my core 30 cards.
Cool.
Third thing that I think is important to look at is checking our defense value on our cards. So there are a lot of instants, particularly in Illusionist.
Yeah.
There are a lot of 2D cards. We just want to try and make sure that we have a nice mix of instant 3D cards, 2D cards.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So I think we'll just jump right into it and start looking at the blues.
Cool.
So what jumps out at me immediately is that we can potentially look to cut down 1 Transcend card. We are playing 6 currently. I think we can get away with 5.
Yeah.
Probably the one I want to get rid of here is the Stir the Pot.
Yeah. Okay.
Despite being my favorite art.
Yeah. It's adorable though. How can you
not love this? How can you not love this card? But I think the effects on these other ones are just a little bit better. The gain 1 life, the go again,
Yeah.
banishing something, the card filter, even bringing back one of your best actions.
Yeah.
All just really good stuff.
All right, fair enough. Sad to see that go.
Yep. Now, some of the other cards, if we have a look at our 2 defense cards here, I'm quite liking a lot of these blue matter cards. Spectral Manifestations, having these conditions just to get a 2-power Spectral Shield might just be a little bit too much in this case.
Okay, fair enough.
Probably want to get rid of that. The Gravekeeping, because the Banish isn't that relevant to us,
Yeah.
I think we also maybe want to have a look at getting rid of this card. So that's 3 cards. Well, I actually do quite like the Waning Vengeance at times. Again, it's an instant, it doesn't defend.
Yeah.
I think this is a card where if you're playing against something like Nu, you may consider bringing it in because one of these can effectively stop 2 daggers.
Gotcha.
But I think for now, we want to try and make sure we're a bit disciplined in that defense value, and we can look at getting rid of this. That brings us down to 15 blues.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good number. We'll have a look at some of the other cards. If we need to, we'll come back.
Yep.
Just before we move on, though, just want to point out a couple of cards. Like you might be saying, Mr. Classic, why are you running blue Winding Blow? That card's pretty
Nobody's
blown.
saying that. Nobody's saying that.
But the important thing about Winding Blow is that number in the bottom right corner.
Yeah.
It's a blue card that defends for 3. One card that we didn't quite speak in depth about previously was Vengeful Apparition. I just want to note one of the cool interactions with this card. So it's when this leaves the arena, if you control no illusionist auras, you may play your next aura with 0 cost this turn as over an instant. If you do, it enters the arena with a +1 counter.
Ooh.
So the cool thing about this is, it's quite a nice play just to play on the first turn of the game. If
Yeah.
you're going first, it also helps turn on your Transcend cards.
Yeah.
The really nice thing that it sets up, I feel, in this deck in particular, is the Solitary Companion here. So this is a 0 cost aura with Ward 3. When it enters, if you control no other illusionist, create a Spectral Shield token.
Cool.
So it's quite nice if you get this down. You can even put this in Arsenal, or if you
Yeah.
draw it in hand. When this dies,
Yeah.
once they generally, outside of Zen, players will end with no action points.
Yeah.
So when they pass, you get to play this for free. Comes in with a +1 power counter. So now this has go again when it attacks as well.
Oh, because of the weapon.
Because of the weapon,
Yeah.
which is really cool. And it creates a Spectral Shield. So that's a lot of value out of just this kind of card here.
Very cool.
So anyway, so I think that largely settles up blues. Like we mentioned, all these blue matter cards are like really, really nice just to push a whole lot of damage.
Yeah.
Again, if you're playing against something like Nu, there might be some thought to actually take out some of the stronger ones, like potentially Tidal Surge Spillover, maybe just bring in some of your weaker blues just so they can't play them back against you.
Don't listen to it. Leave them all in.
Yeah, you don't
All
actually,
your blue attacks, put them in.
you don't actually, big Nu fan over here. You don't have to do that because you don't want to take out all your power cards. Be like, maybe they'll banish them, play them against me, because you get to play them first. But it's just something to perhaps keep in mind while you're playing.
Because if you have a block with these, you're in trouble.
Yeah, particularly if you're blocking one of their stealth cards, it gets banished, or if they just banish it off the top. It's not a great place to be in. So we've now cut 4 cards. Doing pretty good. 4
pretty
cards
good,
gone already. Go us.
3 more to go.
So 3 more cards to go. One of the things I mentioned previously was some of these cards that potentially are quite good in some matchups, but not the others.
Yeah.
One card that immediately jumps out at me is Evasive Leap over here.
Okay.
So Evasive Leap, defense reaction, defense for 3. In Enigma, it's quite nice being able to set this up in Arsenal to try and protect your board. So potentially, you don't always have to protect your board, but if you've got a couple of really nice auras and you're looking at a plan of maybe defending with 3 cards and then just pushing a little bit of damage, really nice to have an Arsenal. But in saying that, as a defense reaction, one of its strengths is stopping things like attack reactions, like against Nu.
Yeah.
We already have the Moon Chakra as well.
Yeah.
So what I'd be thinking is we look at cutting 1 to 2 of these and then bringing them in for certain matchups.
Okay.
So I think for now what we'll do is cut 1.
Yeah.
And we'll come back if we need to, potentially look at cutting the second one.
Cool.
Kind of narrowing it down to cards like the Emissary of Wind, the Single-Minded Determinations, and some of our yellow auras over here.
Gotcha.
So if we have to cut 2 cards, one of the ones I'm looking at quite closely is the Haze Shelter.
Yeah.
The Haze Shelter, it is quite nice that it's an instant aura, and it can have Ward 3, but it doesn't have Go Again.
Yeah.
And on your turn, you're going to have to be able to pitch blue cards to keep it in play.
Gotcha.
This can be a little tricky. We do have a number of good outlets in our equipments.
Yeah.
But in saying that, it's probably a little bit easy for this one to get trapped.
Yeah.
So I think this will probably lead me to cut this card for now.
Yeah.
The Waxing Spectre, again, this actually is instant and it can get Go Again.
Gotcha.
And the Waning Vengeance is an instant that also can make an additional Spectral Shield. So I think that means it sort of gets a nod over these.
Yeah. So it's more of a less conditional card. So these are much safer to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if it was a red Haze Shelter, because that goes up to 4, I'd probably be looking at cutting some other card instead.
Gotcha.
But because it's yellow, it's not really a break point.
Yeah.
I think we may have to get rid of that one for now.
Cool.
Cut 6 cards.
Ooh, one more.
So we're down to the final cut.
Who was lucky last?
I think looking at these cards here, for me it's going to now be between Emissary of Wind and the Single-Minded Determination. They both have their pros and cons, I feel. Single-Minded Determination, one of the great things about this card is it's fantastic when you're going first. It is not instant, so there's a split between instant and non-instant speed auras.
Yeah.
You really need to keep that in mind that non-instant auras, they take your full action point to play.
Yeah.
On top of this is conditional if you control no other illusionist auras.
Gotcha.
So it can be pretty bad when you get a few auras down, you get a little bit of tempo, and then you draw a hand, and it's just full of these kind of cards. So you draw your Single-Minded Determination, your Solitary Companion, and like, what am I doing with my turn?
Yeah, because you play this, no go again, and it's just Ward 2 if you have other auras up.
Yeah, I think I'm probably leaning towards cutting one of these, and then if I'm going first, bringing it in.
Yeah.
So I have 2 on the play, and then if I'm going second, I just have the 1.
Yeah, makes sense.
The Emissary of Wind, the downside of this card is that, again, it's a 2 defense card. But a really nice aspect of this card is just like a 0-4 at its base. So I'm able to sort of attack with potentially multiple auras and just end with a 0-4.
Yeah.
I can just defend out and play a 0-4. It's just nice. It has that breakpoint to help push through ward and things like that. I think just the versatility and also being how to have go again means I'm going to want to play this over the Single-Minded Determination for now.
Cool. All right. So that gets us to 30 cards. So we've got a good solid 30 card deck, 4 pieces of equipment, and we've got some sideboard options. That's
what more do you want,
yeah,
right?
What more do you want? Maybe a Marvel, maybe?
Yeah, that would always be nice to open, right?
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing when you're playing at pre-release is it's always, or you know, if you're lucky enough to be at the World Premiere, it's just, you just want to have fun, right? You want to have fun with the new set. You get to meet a whole bunch of people, maybe a bunch of your locals, maybe people from all different areas.
Yeah.
And you get to just learn and explore a lot of the interactions that you might then translate over to things like Blitz and Classic Constructed.
Yeah.
And also you get to enjoy all this beautiful new art and crack open some great cards.
It is so beautiful, especially the foils and some of the Marvels. Oh my god.
One of my, I think hands down my favorite set all time art-wise. Which is awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Classic, for giving me my first pre-release deck building experience.
Oh, you're most
I learned a lot.
I feel you were very helpful as well.
Yeah, it was cool seeing all these cards that I've sort of seen here and there, but I haven't seen it come together in a pre-release sort of environment. So it's really cool. All the things you got to think about, how the blue count sort of matters differently in this set compared to the other ones. There's all these no blocks in the set. Very tricky.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a puzzle, but a really fun format to play. So don't forget to get out to your local game store, play in your pre-release from May 24th to May 27th. You got to walk the path.
Seek the truth.
Heart the Mistveil. But hold on, I think there's something I'm forgetting. Is there something else like I need to remember? Uhyoung, could you help me out here?
Yeah. Remember to DG, guys.
Remember to DG.